on life's terms coach because life is lifing. I pick a topic every week. If you're not familiar with me in this channel, I pick a topic every week. And this week we're talking about codependency because last week we talked about addiction, and they're all interrelated, addiction and codependency. And so we're talking about that today because a lot of people have preconceived notions. Last week we talked about how addiction is not just drugs and alcohol. There's many forms of addictions that can manifest in a variety of ways as transference of addiction even. So we talked about that last week. A lot of people find themselves sad, lonely, angry, and depressed, and they don't realize maybe it's the alcohol, the drugs, the food addiction, the shopping addiction, because all of these things, done too much can cause us some consequences. So we ended the week talking about the consequences that addiction causes. So this week we're going to talk about the codependency, because a lot of people don't realize what it is. I had someone this morning that I was working with them on possibly addiction, and they're like, no, my problem is really codependency, because they weren't clear what codependency was. I've said before that Dr. Drew and Melody Beatty, got together, and I had a video that I saw with them. And so when they got together, they said that first off, there's addiction, then codependency, and then there's grief. Hello, big guy. Is that people who allow it? It can be enabling, and that could be a form of allowing. This is people who will try to protect people in their addiction. They feel sorry for them. And a lot of times that pity's from wounds that they haven't healed in themselves because they've been trained. They might have been trained to, enable people, to take care of people. You find a lot of people being caretakers in codependency. There's people pleasing in codependency, which are part of survival skills. This is how people knew how to be liked and appreciated and left their autonomy along the way. And when autonomy doesn't get recognized, well, then authenticity is hard to get recognized. But people were born with their authentic gifts and who they are authentically. So sometimes this longing is for the person that we are underneath all the things that we've been trained, And hey, John London, it's good to see you this morning. So a lot of us were trained to be codependent. When I was talking to that person this morning, it's like, she's like, when did this come? And it actually people started understanding what it is. I don't really like the labels so much as anyone else, but it does help us to identify things that maybe we never considered before. And I had told her, people had told me I was codependent before I wanted to realize it, because a lot of people misconstrue what is codependency, because they're like, I'm the one who's helping everybody out. I'm not dependent on anybody. But the thing is that what I didn't realize in my codependency, and what a lot of people don't realize in their codependency, is their why they're doing what they're doing, is they think that this is just normal, because certainly families can encourage codependency. Sometimes schools even may encourage it, but definitely religion can encourage it. And I'm not against religion. I'm just saying that a lot of times we don't get clarity this way. And so a lot of times religion just tells you to shut up, sit down, and believe things that maybe you don't understand. So sometimes that just reinforces a belief of us just trying to be good, And so when we're just trying to be good, what does that look like? Why are we just trying to be good? Because I work with a lot of people, and a lot of the dialogue is I'm trying. And this is an inner child that's just been surviving, trying to figure out how to get love and acceptance. And all right, well, I don't know how to say your name, but we're talking about the topic today. It's going to be codependence. It's awareness. Am I helping or am I avoiding? It's going to be the whys underneath the whys. And so understanding our whys, WHY', helps make us wise, because then we know who we are. Because a lot of people don't feel recognized by other people, but when we go within, we realize maybe I don't even recognize myself. And as a codependent person, if I'm allowing my brother to be with an abusive woman, am I codependent? No, because you don't have no control over that, big guy. Thank you for asking that. But you don't have any control over who your brother chooses to be with. Now, if you're all in his business, see, because you can't change him. You can't change him. You probably can't talk sense into him. But if he keeps coming to you with his problems from that abusive woman, because there are abusive women. If he keeps coming to you with those problems and yet he's not doing anything, he just wants to bitch and complain, and he's drawing you in because this happens. This happens is, people will try to draw you into their drama. This used to happen to me in my codependency. Somebody I loved was in an abusive relationship and they would tell me it was abusive. Then I would go down there and I'd get all in the midst of the shit, big guy. I'd get all in the midst of it. Of course, I was using back then. I was smoking weed and drinking. And anytime my highs got disturbed, I was going to be mad. So I went down there and I would be chewing this person out for being abusive to this person. And then guess what? Then that person would take back up with him again. So I finally had to tell that person, you know what, when they come to me, whining about the same stuff, different day, because they're not wanting help. They just want to vent if it's the same stuff, different day. And you have to ask yourself. For me, I had to learn to ask myself, do I have time for this? Do I have time mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually? Because that stuff can suck your energy out. So this is why I talk about loving boundaries, is we don't want to judge somebody because they have these problems, because people get it when they get it, But at the same time, we don't have to subject ourselves to the same drama different day, right? So far as the codependent part for you would go is if you're annoyed by him telling you this all the time and you wish he would do something and he doesn't do anything. You can maybe tell him possibly you're codependent, because I shared on Monday night about how I didn't know what a codependent, I went to CODA. I was sent to CODA and I didn't know what a codependent relapse would look like. And I was sitting in the group of people in the codependency meeting, and this lady walks in with a black eye. And your brother could get a black eye too. It's not just, you're right, abuse isn't just towards women, or it's both. Women and men can be abused. And so this lady walks in with a black eye, and I'm like, damn, that must be what a codependent relapse looks like, because it's pretty obvious with the alcohol and drug addiction, unless the drugs are like pain pills, because I that's the hardest for me to handle is people, because I like to help people in addiction, but I can't help, the pain pill addiction is hard because they're so tricky. They are tricky. So anyway, but yeah. And people have to want help, and he may just be wanting to vent, and you can ask him, big guy, are you wanting to vent, or are you trying to get help? Or because I apologize, I feel for you, dude, but you keep going back. So there's a part of you. I told this other person, when they kept drawing me into this and going back, I was like, I think you must like this. And what I suggest to my sponsees or clients is, I'm like, what's the payoff here? What's the payoff? Because there's a reason you keep going back, and sometimes it's in the body. Sometimes it's the serotonin and dopamine, like we've talked about in toxic relationships. It can keep that push and pull going on. So it's about getting to know ourselves. Thank you, Sammy. All right, well, very good. I'm glad that you're watching. I appreciate you, big guy. That's exactly what he does. He always says, I'm done with her, and stays for years. I know. I used to fall into saving people that were doing this, trying to be the hero. And I had to look at, well, what's the payoff, Stacy? And the payoff was my central nervous system was getting affected. And it was running on that adrenaline that I was used to. But at some point in time, we get tired, and we just got to learn to set boundaries. And I did. It's finally like, you know what, you like it, because it's very disheartening for you to try to be supportive of somebody that keeps going back into that kind of thing, right? It wears you out. It wears you out. Well, I'm glad you're here, Sammy. Hello, James. I'm good. How are you? So we're talking about awareness today, and the whys underneath the whys. And am I helping or am I avoiding? And so we looked at these things like, hello, Richard. All right, Woofy. So because someone can say, I just want help, like what Big Guy's saying, I just want help. But underneath that might be like, if I help you, you won't leave me. If I fix this, I won't have to feel helpless. This might be what's going on there. If I fix this, then I won't have to feel helpless, because sometimes we feel helpless, and sometimes we can't fix other people's problems. Well, James, if you want help, that my email address is in the description, and you could get, but this is a talk that I'm just doing to make people more aware of what codependency is, because I myself didn't know what it is. So I hope that you'll listen. So sometimes we don't acknowledge this dialogue within ourselves, but sometimes the feeling is, or the imprint is if you're okay, I can finally relax. If I make this better, you'll appreciate me, because most people who are codependent really struggle with this appreciation and this appreciation problem. Hello, Shavana. So the appreciation, they'll say, nobody appreciates me. I do, and I do, and I do. And we don't even acknowledge all that we're doing, because we would esteem ourselves better and not be doormats if we acknowledged all that we did, that we're capable of. But when we're trying to be capable for other people and not realizing, because today is Wednesday. Thank you very much, Shivansha. So to remembering what it is that we do. What do I do? How do I get my sense of self? Because codependents have had their sense of self taken away for whatever reason. It's not, they've given their power away. Some of it's we give our power away, but some of it's a learned behavior. Some codependent people were never taught how to feel feelings. They may have grown up in a house where people didn't feel feelings, so they were not used to communicating what they wanted, needed, and desired. Some people grew up in homes where they wanted to be nurtured, they wanted to be loved, they wanted to be cared about, and they're always longing for that. And so they're always seeking out people to give them that, but they keep choosing the familiar, which leaves them still wanting. So this is the understanding codependence. And talking to someone this morning, she was like, when I told her where this originated, like back in the early 1970s, Melody Beattie writing the book Codependent No More. And there's a Codependence Guide to the 12 Steps, but this used to be mandated in the Betty Ford Clinic, because codependency is part of addiction. It's that sense of self. You have money but no happiness? Well, sometimes that is. Some people can have no money and have happiness. Some people can have money and no happiness. And some people can have, so yeah. So I'm glad you're here, James. So another part of the codependent part is, if you need me, then I have value, right? A lot of people need somebody to need them. I had a client once that she was working, she was a nurse, because a lot of codependents are caretakers. I'm not saying every nurse is a codependent. I'm not saying that at all. So please don't take it out of context. But a lot of people who work with people in caretaking have some codependent, that's the role that they're good at. And it's nothing wrong with it, because there's nothing wrong with it, because we can turn our survival skills into tangible tools. It is our gift. Their gift is being able to caretake of people, but when are you doing too much? Because people who worry about being too much are often doing too much because they don't feel like enough. So we live in this electromagnetic universe, and getting into alignment with our words and our feelings is very important, because if we don't get in alignment with our words and our feelings, we may possibly give our power away, which is a part of this electromagnetic field, the positive and the negative. A lot of people are just totally focused on the positive, but they're navigating from the negative, saying, I don't want this to happen, so they're giving that all the energy. And they have an expectation that the world is supposed to be positive, but the world is the rise and fall. So this is like understanding things as they are instead of how we want them to be. And that's what Oprah Winfrey says is a big part of healing. So when we're able to look at these things within our side of ourselves, instead of wondering why this person does this and why that person does that, why do I do this? And why do I feel this way about that? That's going to be the healing part, is when we get to taking our power back, is why do I feel this way? Why am I participating in this? All right, so if I make this better, maybe you'll appreciate me. If you need me, then I have value. These are some of the things that may be going on with codependency. If I'm focused on your problems, I don't have to look at mine. If I keep you from experiencing consequences, I don't have to experience my guilt, right? That's what a lot of people will get in somebody else's business, so they don't have to experience their own guilt, because they'll be performing from a place of guilt. Maybe it's unearned guilt, but until they take a look at it, they won't even know if they've really earned that guilt, because a lot of people feel guilty that haven't done anything. So if I can control what happens to you, I can feel safe. These are things that are in the codependence system that maybe they don't acknowledge, but this is something that's happening with their central nervous system, is that safety issue. Is that's why they feel like they always got to be doing something. And if they're sitting still or they're what have you, they're uncomfortable with that. So, we have the relationship-based survival strategies that we have. We talked the other evening, and it was a big talk about codependence and narcissism, but I'm going to choose to call narcissism relationship-based survival strategies now because, oh my goodness. So at some point, many people learned I'm safer when everyone around me is okay. Now that's they became the rescuer, the fixer, the peacekeeper. Did any of y'all relate with this? The mediator, the financial savior, the emotional support system. Hello, Richard. Funcoda, hello. So not necessarily because they're weak, because somewhere along the way, being needed became connected to safety and being loved and of worth. Hey, Mr. Summonveer, it's good to see you. Big guy. Wise make you wise on Wednesday. I love you too. Thank you very much, big guy. You get it. You connected all the dots. That's what I love about getting on here, is that we get to connect some dots, because if we keep the dots on the outside of ourselves and everything, but yes, exactly. Wise make you wise on Wednesday. Thank you. Love you too. So on Monday's Night Slab, we talked about how codependent relationships. Hi, Adelaide. Thank you very much. I appreciate you too. Thank you very much for being here. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, I encourage you to subscribe, because I usually pick a topic of the week and then we keep expanding upon it. So I thank you for being here and thank you for your comment. You're back. Yes, I am back at the original home, Mr. Summonveer. I'm so glad, and Grinch is too. We're both so happy to be here. You're from Chicago. James, I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. So on Monday Night's Lab, the codependent relationships are transactional. That's what we talked about, is they're transactional, and we don't even realize it. A lot of codependent people think, I'm just trying to be nice. That's what I was. I thought I was innocent and blind and just trying to be nice. And I had to get real with myself. I had to get honest with myself. I wasn't innocent and I wasn't blind and I wasn't just trying to be nice. I was trying to get something. I was manipulating by people pleasing. That's what I had to learn. People pleasing is a manipulation, because I wasn't being my authentic self, because I really didn't even know who my authentic self was, because I didn't experience my autonomy. You see, I didn't embrace it. Maybe I tried to experience it, but a lot of us try to experience our autonomy like 2 years old teenagers, and we get shut down. We get gaslit in a way and told that this isn't what we're supposed to think and feel. So then we try to adjust and adapt to a way that we can think and feel so that we can get acceptance and love. So we turn into pretzels sometimes, and it can carry on into adulthood. And sometimes if we've had overbearing parents, we may be afraid of overbearing bosses, overbearing spouses, overbearing friends, and all of this, because that just hasn't healed in us. It's not an indication of who we are, that we're any less than anybody else. It just means that we just haven't healed yet. So that's what I like to discuss and open up here. New here, what's the stream about? I like to build things. All right, I like to build things. We are talking about codependency today. I pick a topic of the week of what things that we are dealing with or that somebody around us may be dealing with, so that we can understand better. So it's more about unity and community. All right, we don't talk about that here, Den Snow, and if you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. I hope this helps you, but we don't talk about anything that would maybe be dividing people, because everybody's welcome here. We don't talk about that kind of thing. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about my age, and we don't talk about what my dating status. And we don't also call each other names up in here or do this kind of thing. So that's not what's happening here. So you're welcome to stay, but please stay on topic. And the topic is codependency today. And a lot of people don't understand it. So that's why I'm here trying to discuss it, so that people have a better understanding, because I didn't understand it till I did. And so that girl this morning saying, I'm kind of mad because I didn't know what it was. I said, well, that's the thing, is we don't know what things are until we do. And then once we do, we know. And so, hey, Raven, you're going to like to talk this morning too. Codependency, about how people don't appreciate us, and so, yeah, it's good to see you, Raven. Hey, Daddy Sing. Adelaide, safe space for everyone, because exactly, Adelaide, we are all pink inside. That's what, that's the thing, is I love that song by Pink. We're all pink inside. So it doesn't matter who or what, we're just here because we're all just trying to have unity and community and to understand and have a loving, supportive community to come to, so that we can better understand ourselves, because the world's out here telling you who you need to be, who you need to vote for, what the drama that's outside of ourselves, the ain't it awfuls. And I appreciate you all for being here, because you have a choice of being here or not. And I appreciate you not being in front of the ain't it awfuls. I get it. I'm in the ain't it awful sometimes too. I look at it too. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it means a lot to me for you to spend your time here. So thank you very much. All right, y'all got some interesting opinions. John Handles, we don't talk about any of that. We were talking about codependency this morning. Y'all are welcome to stay, and I hope that it's going to be helpful to you. So, like I said, Monday night, we talked about codependent relationships that are transactional, and codependency versus narcissism. And the difference, I think, is intentional. Intentional. What's our intentionals? I'm not retired commando. Thank you. So, intentional. A person who struggles with either of the codependency or narcissism with either of these is due to adaptations like we listed above, those adaptations I was talking about. So the change from that is to discover these survival skills, so we can turn those survival skills into tangible tools. I don't know how to do that. All right. Sorry about that. I'm not talking about that anymore. So anyway, I'm still talking about codependency, but I'm not going to have that message distract me. All right, your message ain't going to distract me either. Some of y'all, I tell y'all, I set that boundary, but if y'all don't listen, that's not on me, that's on you. So, the change from that, I value these messages here. So I want to thank you all who comment, especially when your comments are on topic. But if your comments are about your own agendas, then unless it's dealing with the topic, then I'm going to have to put you in timeout because it's just too distracting. Not that anybody's here because it says 0 right now, but if you are, thank you. So a person who struggles with either codependency or narcissism, like we discussed above, the change is to discover these survival skills. We can understand ourselves rather than try to figure out and manipulate everyone else. So our central nervous system will calm when we figure ourselves out, when we get in touch with ourselves, our mind, body, and soul. Then our central nervous system will calm down, because your central nervous system is playing a role here, whether you realize it or not. Your autonomic system is what will react. The person I talked to this morning was very reactive, and they're very excited about getting to work on their codependency because they didn't understand why they were reacting. They didn't understand because when I told them that the problem that they were facing wasn't the problem that they were fighting about, they brought up all this stuff from the past. You can't experience mindfulness, Sabin Thomas. Well, we're going to breathe at the end of this. So I hope that you can hang in here and stay with us, and that some of this stuff will help you. Because certainly calming your central nervous system will help you to be able to experience mindfulness, because this is about awareness today, our whys, WHY''S, and those will make us wise, WISE. So I hope that you'll stay, Siban. So the change from that is to discover the survival skills. When we can understand ourselves rather than trying to figure out and manipulate everyone else, our central nervous system will calm. Meaning that flight, fight, and freeze. That's part of your central nervous system. Some chemical imbalance in your brain. Well, there is that. Sometimes there is a chemical imbalance in the brain, and certainly the breathing will help it, but I'm not a doctor, so you could see a doctor also. I lost this ability since 2 years old. Well, a lot of time at 2 years old, we're trying to get our autonomy. Does alcohol calm the nervous system? Well, alcohol is an instant gratification, depending on how much alcohol you use. Some people can have one drink, and take the edge off, and I wouldn't think that's a problem. The problem is if we use alcohol to cope, because last week I was talking about, the addictions. And if we're saying, I need a drink every time a problem comes up, or when we are celebrating, I need a drink, because it is good for celebration. If normal people, I would suppose, would need a drink to celebrate. Good morning, JR. If we're using a drink to take the edge off, we really need to figure out what is the problem with the edge, rather than, because the drinking's just an instant gratification that's just going to mask it for a minute, but the problem will still be there. So if we use drinking as a coping, then the drinking is not okay. But if you're just using drinking because, oh, this is a celebration, and this is what, in any addiction, whether it's food, drugs, alcohol, any of these, they may not even be addiction. If you're using it to really enjoy, then, and it is indeed a treat, but who needs a treat every day? And some people do that. And this is where the addictions get started, is because a reward will become a habit, and then a habit can become an addiction. One antidepressant pill completely wipes your self-awareness ability. Some people say that, and it does affect your inability to cry, because I was on antidepressants before and I couldn't cry. Big guy, it's crazy. The edge is a chemical in upper brain. Yeah, well, it's we have these tapes. We are constantly getting feedback from everything that we've learned in our past. Everything that we see today has a definition, has a memory from the past, and so everything that we see, we've associated a thought or a feeling to, or we wouldn't know what it was, right? And so sometimes it's good, just the mindfulness, like they were talking about, is just to wipe our brain, and mindfulness alone can do that. The alcohol won't do it, the food won't do it, because usually if we use alcohol, food, shopping, sex, drugs, those things are instantly, we feel better, but eventually it's going to feel double, because a lot of people feel regret after that. And so, when we're being mindful, we're not going to feel regret after. Body-mind connection doesn't work. Well, it might not work for you. It works well for me, but I understand that it may not work for some people, especially if your central nervous system needs healing, because when, sometimes when we're trying to be mindful, we will get monkey mind, is what and I had monkey mind. So the monkey mind means I can't quit thinking, but these thoughts are generated from experiences that I've had in the past. If the experiences didn't serve me, that doesn't mean that they didn't exist, but I have to get a different perspective on the experience, because I've gained a strength from that experience. And that's what healing calls for, is for us to realize the strength that we gained from the experience, so we can turn those survival skills into tangible tools. Yeah, the pills completely destroyed your brain. Well, they didn't destroy mine, but they did take the edge off for about a year and a half. But, I didn't like not being able to cry. Thomas, self-awareness takes practice. If you've learned to ignore and hide yourself, it takes time to connect with yourself again. It does take time. It's not, see, that's the problem with addiction, is addiction's instant gratification, is I want something to fix me right now, but healing requires for us to look at those things of our whys. Why do I feel this way? Why am I thinking this way? When I explained to the person the other day that the problem you're fighting about today doesn't have anything to do with the problem today, because they didn't even address that problem today. Because what happened was there was a problem today, and then what happened is they ended up throwing up all this stuff about how much they do for this person, and then that's giving the person more shame. It's not helping the situation. It's giving more shame, because they felt attacked by something that they really did. They really did make a mistake, but we all make mistakes as humans, but some of us are afraid of making mistakes as humans because of that past, because maybe it wasn't safe to make mistakes in our past. And this affects your central nervous system, autonomic system. And this is why this person automatically went off on this person when this person said, told them that they were late picking them up, then this person's autonomic system went into, well, I do this, this, and this. And because they were upset because they didn't get picked up, this person was like trying to defend themselves for all of that. And I know I did that too in my codependency. I was very overwhelmed in codependency, because I would be trying, just like some of my clients, I relate, I would be trying to do all this stuff that was demanded of me, so that I didn't let anybody down. But when, I let myself down. So when somebody says you didn't do this right, when I'm trying, then everything else comes out, and so that defense. When we heal, we don't feel like we have to defend ourselves anymore. Hello, Marshall Blackbeard. Teach Blackbeard. It's good to see you this morning. Adelaide, I think we're overprescribed pills as a quick fix, but we will only truly feel better through self-reflection and healing. Right, Adelaide, that's so true. Like Siban may actually need pills, but I don't know if he does or not because I'm not a doctor. I'm a coach. And so I'm not going to tell people to or to not because I don't want to take that kind of responsibility on. I'm not saying that. So, but the thing is some people do indeed have chemical imbalances that may need some kind of supplement or something like that. I've seen that, especially with bipolar and these kind of things. They may need a supplement or such. So there's some chemical imbalances that, there is help for. So why would we choose to silent suffer? And this is what my person, in the codependency is like, silent suffering, because many of us were taught to silently suffer, when we weren't allowed to express things. Good morning, Greg. It's good to see you, although it's not morning where you are, right? But I agree, Adelaide, we are overprescribed. I don't take anything anymore, but I have had to take the antidepressants. I took them once because I was overwhelmed when I got divorced and a single mom of 2 kids, and I didn't know sometimes how I was going to make ends meet, and I would be crying, and I didn't, I had 2 kids to raise, and my daughter came in and she's like, Mommy, why are you crying? And I'm like, honey, sometimes you just need to cry, because crying is the healthiest release of our pain, of our overwhelming, because sometimes we're just, so much pressure is built up inside of us. The healthiest way to release that pressure is through your tears, because that waters your soul. Because we put all kinds of crap on our soul when we're in addiction, or when we're telling ourselves that we're not good enough, or we're telling ourselves these kind of things. Web Matrix, I am not licensed. I'm a coach. So, yeah, I'm certified. Raven, people pleasing can make someone change who they are to gain security. Exactly. We lose our autonomy. That's what I said. I'm not trying to tell anybody to take medicine or not take medicine, Web Matrix, because I'm not a doctor. So, people pleasing can make someone change, yes, to gain security. And that's it. We lose our autonomy is what happens, is because at 2 years old, we're asking for autonomy. At 2 years old, our nose, we're trying to get comfortable with our nose. And codependency and things like this, people aren't comfortable with their nose. And I often refer to what Lisa Nichols says, about her grandmama telling her baby, if you want to your yeses to be a value, now this isn't the exact words, so I'm paraphrasing, but if you want people to get, if you want your yeses to be appreciated, y'all, you need to get comfortable with your nose. Being comfortable saying no, because if you say yes to everything, people will, walk all over you and be a doormat. And then you're going to feel overwhelmed. And it's like, well, did you ask for help? No. Why didn't you ask for help? Well, because I'm going to feel like it's too much or what have you. And it's like, so when we start learning our own self-dialogue, we have a city named Adelaide. Ah, yeah, that is cool. That is cool. When we start paying attention to our own dialogue, then we are going to know what it is that we want, need, and desire. But so many of us are anticipating and strategizing, especially in codependency, on what we're looking at other people. How people know when you're codependent is like when I used to go to therapy, she made me go to CODA. I did not want to go to CODA. I did not. But I would go to therapy and she would say, Stacy, did you go to CODA? And I'd say, no, I went to Al-Anon. She'd say, no, you need to go to CODA. I'd go back to therapy the next time. She'd say, did you go to CODA? Because I'm stubborn. I learned things the hard way. And she'd say, did you go to CODA? And I'd say, no, I went to Al-Anon. She'd say, you need to go to CODA. I finally went to CODA and I stayed. I stayed for 2 years in the codependency program. And it was very helpful. I found my freedom. CODA is codependency is what it is, the codependency program. And what it is do I have the book for it up here? Yes, I do. There's like Codependent's Guide to the 12 Steps. Codependents oftentimes don't know who they are because, like Raven was saying earlier, is that we adjust and we adapt. And so sometimes as we adjusted and adapted as children, We're still adjusting and adapting as adults, but we've not received our autonomy, like I was saying, when we're 2 years old and we say no and get our butt busted. And our parents just did what their parents did, what their parents did, what their parents did. And there is a thing about evolution. So it's not about blaming our parents, it's realizing how we have evolved. And now we can get on here and have everything at our fingertips, people to support us, people to love us. But people didn't used to have that. When my parents were growing up and their parents were growing up, they didn't have these things. Things for women have changed. That's why I'm so grateful for Betty Ford, because women didn't get to vote for a very long time. And then in 1974, the 70s, when this codependency thing came out, there was also women being able to, get a credit card and an apartment, because women used to not be able to do that. So a lot of things were taught suppression, from generation to generation. And as we evolve, it's not really intentional. So when we get to know our intentions and motivations, because our mothers' stayed home most likely, so they felt like their job was to do certain things. Then our mothers may have started to work some, and some of them worked a lot, depending on, and we don't know, but their experience was different. And then we have a different experience that, like when I was a kid, they used to make fun of people who sought therapy. Life was so different then. Yes, that's the evolution. That's the way life is it's going to evolve. My daddy used to say, when things change, you got to change with them, because they're going to evolve. My hair color changed all on its own. I didn't have anything to do with it. So, things are going to change. So we can go kicking and screaming and digging in our nails, and I've done that before. Or, and sometimes we kick and scream and dig our nails in first, because I don't need to agree with everything. See, that's when we get to know ourselves and our autonomy, knowing what I need to say no to. I don't need to say no to everything, but I need to say no to some things, right? So do you. And learning how to get comfortable with our no's, is very important. So our yeses are more important, that our yeses are valued, because people know now when I say I'm going to do something, or when I want to do something, that I'm going to do it. When I was in my codependency, I would say yes, but when the time came, maybe I would have an excuse. Anybody else out here like that? When the time comes, it's like, no. So when I get my intentions and motivations in alignment, thinking about what I like, what I need, and what I want, and am I overwhelming myself? Because sometimes I can't say yes to things that I may even want to do. I may have a prior commitment. And if I have a commitment, then I can't do this. And I don't feel like I'm lacking. And I'm not feeling like I'm letting anybody down when I say no, because they know that if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm not just doing it. How many of y'all think, in working with people with codependency, when people compliment them, they'll say, well, they're just saying that. And also, this is our low self-worth is what's speaking. They're just saying that. And when people do stuff for us, they're just doing that to be nice. Because what? It's a projection. Because what am I doing? See, we don't look at ourselves. So what am I doing? Am I doing something just to be nice? I was just nice. I was just innocently and blindly walking into drama, but I wasn't innocent and I wasn't blind. I was a part of it if I chose to participate in it. So I had to learn to tell myself, I'm just not going to participate in this. But I had to learn. I sat there for 2 years in this codependency program, worked my steps on codependency. Yes, people would get so upset with me because I didn't know how to say no to their face. Now I've practiced saying, let me get back to you, or let me check my calendar first so I have time to. Exactly. And that's so valid, Adelaide. I'm glad you brought that up, because when I am teaching people boundaries, I'm able to tell them, because they may be like, I just don't want them to feel rejected because I know what feeling rejected feels like. Right? But then, so when we're not considering ourselves, we don't realize that that's part of that survival skill, because we're saying we also don't want to be rejected. So we don't say no because we don't want to be rejected, because we know what rejection. So it's the same, we're not listening to ourselves, and I didn't either. So, in working with people, I said exactly what you said. I've worked with people who had a lot of money and their family kept asking them for money. And they said, they just want to ask me for money. And I'm like, well, exactly what you said, Adelaide. I said, you need to look them in the eyes and say, Because loving boundaries, a lot of people think boundaries are setting ultimatums, that boundaries are being ugly to somebody. Loving boundaries are not like that. Loving boundaries love me and they love you too. It's not just one. We're not compromising ourselves. So I told her, I said, well, when they come to you wanting money, you need to say, if you don't want to say no just yet, to practice getting comfortable with your no's, just don't even say yes, like you were saying, Adelaide, and then just say, you know what, let me think about it. So I said, now practice with me. So when I was practicing with her, she's like, no, I pretended like I was her family, and she's like, no, let me think about it. I said, well, okay, at least you said it. I said, but you need to have your shoulders up, your face up. You need to look them in the eyes and say, no, I don't know. Let me think about it. I don't know. Let me think about it. And so she did a little better. She looked up and she goes, I don't know. Let me think about it. I said, well, okay. Then she sounded kind of like a robot, right? And so it's like, no, let's do it again. Let's do it again. And she did. It's like, I don't know. Let me think about it. We have to pull our personalities out sometimes, because when you've been codependent, our personality, personal reality is about people pleasing, about surviving and these things. There's some fear there. So we have to not look afraid when we start learning how to set loving boundaries, because people set loving boundaries with us and we're like, okay, But it's those boundaries when we feel dismissed or discarded, right? When people dismiss or discard us. So we sometimes think that that's boundaries. And so we accept it because we don't know the difference yet. So we have to learn the difference within our self, cells, and soul so that we can know the difference. Because how we respond is that wisdom to know the difference. That's the thing, is how am I going to respond with my wisdom? And see, I have to look at my whys to gain my wisdom. So we won't feel hurried or rushed or overwhelmed when we acknowledge our central nervous system. Our central nervous system keeps us, if you feel hurried, rushed, and overwhelmed, chances are you might be in survival mode. It's not to say that you are, but you might be. So we can develop a relationship between our mind and body and know our intention and motivation, because your mind is reflective of your thoughts. Okay, so hi, Mama. Hi, beautiful Mama. So what your words express is what your thoughts are. So when we say what we mean and mean what we say, but we don't have to be mean when we say it. Greg, I have been hiding. Some old customers keep wanting me to keep contracting for them. I'm past working as a 20-year-old. What? That's good that you're not taking it on. I would just, I mean, sometimes I have to tell people I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm not as old as I'm going to be, but I'm not as young as I used to be. So I'm glad that you're taking that time for yourself. So codependency is in codependency, one of our strongest desires is to find a person who gets us, right? Whether it's workers, friends, husbands, wives, partners, whatever. So codependency is one of our strongest desires, is to find our person. We want somebody to communicate with us, who gets us and understands us. But the reality is that if we don't understand ourselves, sometimes we have an expectation that someone is going to give us something that we don't have and therefore don't recognize it. We do have it, we just don't recognize it. It's part of what's been buried on your soul, because you already have it. You were born worthy. You were born with talents and gifts. And so I oftentimes encourage us to go back and think about when we were children, because that's when your autonomy started shutting down, as you were being yourself when you were a child. And then the autonomy starts shutting down when people disapprove of that, when you start trying to say no and you get your butt busted. And I'm not saying to let your kids run wild and be brats, but I did love, our parents didn't have the tools that we have. And when I got to be that single mom and I was at my wit's end and crying and all of this, somebody gave me these CDs, Love and Logic. And I loved that because it taught consequences. It taught, you can have choices and consequences. And I loved being able to have choices and consequences, because we didn't get to learn that. We learned to follow the rules. Rules aren't boundaries. Mr. Inappropriate. Guys, listen closely to what she says. She knows what she's talking about. She's very intelligent. Thank you, Mr. Inappropriate. It's good to see you this morning. Thank you for joining. So when we look at expectations, this is one of the things I had to look at in my codependency is these expectations that I had because I did want somebody to save me. I had the Disney fairy tale, like a lot of people, going on in my head. Somebody was going to save me. Somebody was just going to get me. We were just going to be a whole new world, whatever. So, and I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but it's not going to happen if I don't know myself, if I don't know what I want, what I need, and what I desire. Because we need somebody to match that too. We don't need to be trying to match somebody else. And this is what creates a mutual relationship, whether it's work, whether it's family, whether it's friends. Big guy, karma is a consequence. It is. And it's not always a bad consequence. We can create good karma too. So when something happens to us, this is what I was telling somebody the other day, when something happens to us and, playing that victim, is it karma? Are we taking a self-inventory? Have I not done the same thing that I'm accusing somebody else of doing? See, when we don't like something that's happening to us, have I not done something I'm accusing somebody else of doing? Am I playing the victim? And I'm not saying that we weren't a victim at one time in our lives. I'm saying that we have to forgive ourselves for letting that victimhood have power over us if we want to thrive. Because if we live in that fear, it's going to hold us back from a lot of things, and we may feel like we're living in lack. So, expectation is something something that we don't have. Okay, so when we say if they are happy, then I'm happy. How my therapist knew I was codependent, Adelaide. When we accept victimhood, we strip ourselves. Exactly, Adelaide. That's giving our power away to somebody else. We have to take our power back. We might have been a victim, but we have to take our power back. When we were children and we had to adapt to certain things, we adapted to a lot of things. But when we get our autonomy back and start learning, what do I like? What do I want? What do I need? What do I desire? Am I mad at this thing because a parent was mad at this or this person was mad at this? To have our own autonomy is to have our own thoughts and feelings and to be okay with that and not feel like I'm less than because I have my own thoughts and feelings. So that's, getting our power back is that way. But it took some work. It took some work for me to get my power back. So we come across, if they're happy, then I'm happy. How my therapist knew I was codependent was when she would ask me how I was doing. And this is how I know when other people are codependent. So when I say, how are you doing? And they're telling me, well, this person's doing this and this person's doing that and this person's doing this. When I ask you, how are you doing? And you tell me about this person and that person and this event and that event. And you've all but, dismissed what I asked you. How are you doing? See, this is where we dismiss ourselves, and it's not conscious. It's not anything bad. I'm just saying it's not conscious. This could have been trained, learned. It could have just been something, our survival skill, because if this person's in bad, then we may not feel like we're surviving, because a lot of people confuse empathy with codependency. Empathy means that I can care about what's happening with you, but not take it on. It's not going to affect my central nervous system. Empathy means I care about you, but I don't have to take that on. I may even be heartbroken for somebody else. I may cry, but I'm not going to carry around. That's not going to be my whole topic for the day. And my codependency, one event could happen, and I would carry it around all day long, all day, as proof, as evidence of my pain. So I kept carrying the pain around. But at some point in time, when the pain gets great enough, we'll start healing or not. So what I've come to know is that these whys, WHY', when internally directed, will make us wise. WISE, give us our wisdom. We can learn a lot about ourselves. That's the best adventure we're going to take. We can go a lot of places, but getting to take that internal adventure tells us where we want to go, where we want to grow. So in codependency, we may have learned or to distract from our own mind and for to other people's whys. I think about it. Sometimes if you sit around and say, and I used to, why are they doing this? Why are they acting like that? Why? Or they. The really important thing is what I had to learn is, why do I feel this way? If I'm in an unhealthy relationship, it's like, why do I stay? Do I want to be in a relationship with somebody who cheats, or do I want to be in a relationship with somebody who lies, or do I want to be, because if this keeps happening, This is something we may not have even asked ourselves. We may think that we're stupid because they keep lying to us. You're not stupid because they keep lying to you. Some people just lie. It's not to say some people don't just lie, because some people just lie. Sometimes we lie to ourselves, especially when we think we're not good enough, because you were born good enough. So sometimes we have to heal that so we don't take it on, because you won't take it on anymore once you heal it. You're not going to think, well, they're being mean to me because I'm not good enough, or they're treating me this way because I'm not good enough. And maybe we don't say that to ourselves, but we say, oh, I wish I was like, we'll compare. I wish I was like this person. I wish I was like that person, or that person has this and this person, it takes away your identity. Comparison strips your identity too. So, let me get back to the notes so I stay on track and be mindful of our time. So when we don't understand something, we'll create something in our mind to make something make sense, and that will come from our perceptions. So when I was telling you that data, the stuff that you see, are perceptions. So meaning we have what we have experienced and know from the data that's in our brain that has formed our thoughts and opinions. And most of all, our fears. Sociopaths have no empathy. Right. Sociopath and narcissist have no empathy. No. What happened is their brain, now I don't know about the sociopath, but I know that a lot of times, and this is the thing in healing, is that our brain, you got to go. So, thank you, JR. I'm glad you were here. Thank you so much. Much love to you too. Thank you. So what happens is when people experience trauma, our brain, there's a part of our brain that shuts down. We don't know how to react or respond. So when that part of the brain, when we see that again and again and again, our brain still doesn't know how to react or respond. So this is why the breathing is so helpful, because when we had that happen, thank you, JR, when that happened to us, that was our autonomic, that's your automatic. So anytime you see or that you just shut down, that sends you into that shutdown, that freeze, right? Or it sends you into the fight, or it sends you into the flight, which I would say that the flight is probably distraction when people may get into their shopping addiction, right? I know for me, that's what it was. So that's all I'm saying. So, when we learn to love ourselves, we don't get into relationships obsessing over what we can do to keep the attention on ourselves. You see, when I was in my codependency, I would idealize these relationships. They were more important than I was, right? And I would this is it. So this is what I'm talking about here. So when we learn to love ourselves, we don't get into relationships obsessing over what we can do to keep the attention on ourselves and making sure someone doesn't forget us and worry about their not liking us. This is anxious attachment also. It could be called anxious attachment. So maybe that is not how it starts at all. Maybe it's just the obsessive admiration. We already partially, are not in our business. We're already partially not in our business, because in codependency, what I learned is about expectations. Expectations are an appointment with disappointment, because I didn't express them. This is why it's important to know what I want, need, and desire, because a lot of times people want certain things, idealize these things, and admire these things, but don't know what they want or how that feels like. And so for you to know that experience of feeling that way, because some people may already be getting the feeling, some people may not, but as long as we're longing for it and we haven't defined what it is, we won't know even when we receive it. This is where we get into this, nothing I ever do is good enough, because until a person can acknowledge what it is that they want, it's not going to be good enough, because everyone's going to be having this ideal of things but not knowing what it is. I know I did this. So maybe that's not how it starts at all. Maybe it's obsessive admiration that we're already partially not in our business. How many get into relationships of whatever and they're thinking about it all day long, and so they're not even being present. So that's a distraction also, you see. So they're in not being in the business, they're already trying to manipulate from the beginning about how this is going to go. That fairy tale, it starts going to Disney World. You know what I mean? And so, yeah. So we have an agenda, and as codependents, we often don't verbalize because of our low sense of self-worth. We talked about Monday night how if we didn't get support, or with our autonomy levels of growth in a loving and accepting way, we learn to manipulate getting love and acceptance and not understand the adaptation. That's just all. That's why we need to take a look at the whys underneath the intention and motivation. A lot of us don't even realize what our intention and motivation is. I didn't know what my intentions or motivation was till I looked at my drug and alcohol addiction, till I looked at my codependency. I had to dig them up. What's my intention and motivation? Because it was on my soul. Because really I was being good, but I couldn't acknowledge it because I had a manipulation behind it. Because I wasn't present with myself. I was too busy trying to figure out somebody else. And so I had to learn to go within myself to figure these things out. So our survival skills will have us reacting, and sometimes the reactions have us ask why for a moment, but it usually doesn't last. We may say, why does this always happen? And then we just distract ourselves. Because in fear, we immediately try to fix it. Or we stand up for ourselves with somebody. Hopefully it's loving. Sometimes they don't start off as loving. But, if you're getting conscious of your behavior, then you'll just do better the next time, because it's about progress, not perfection. So we'll be trying to fix it. Sometimes if I set a boundary, not me now, but when I used to set a boundary, then we're trying to fix it because feeling bad and then trying to fix it. Somebody treats you bad and then you try to fix it, right? So that was a learned behavior, and it seems normal and natural to a codependent person to fix it. Maybe you had to fix everything your whole life, So we pivot between second guessing and feeling justified. So in survival mode, we're operating from the intention and not having a painful event. That's the intention, but we don't acknowledge it. But the thing is we're operating from the don't want and not. I don't want to have pain. I don't want to have pain. And so when we start to experience pain, that's oftentimes when we slip into the addiction, because we don't want to have the pain. The pain isn't going to kill us, but we have to feel it to heal it. That's the thing. Is it's not going to go away till we feel it to heal it. Or this is why we may get too expanded in our food addiction. This may be why we kill ourselves with drug addiction. It may be why, so understanding our whys. So, you're welcome to stay, Vanita Singh, but please put in the comments only things that are pertaining to the content, okay? Thank you. So, painful event happen again and again of our deep-seated resentment. So when things happen, those resentments just keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Guess what? Because they're recent information. It's recent information. Like when this person had this disappointment come from this other person and they felt like they needed to defend themselves for this recent information. All right, we don't talk about religion on here, Colum Jade, but you're welcome to stay, but your comments will be deleted or you'll be put in timeout if you talk about religion here. We're talking about codependency. So recent information is what makes us feel more defeated and sends us back into the evidentiary rabbit hole of not feeling worthy, right? It keeps telling us I'm not worthy. It's like a loop or a spiral, like the rabbit hole, the loop or the spiral. As we don't want it to repeat. It still repeats. It continues. It keeps going and going. Rumination may be part of it. Obsession and rumination. So I know for me it was because another word for that manipulation was control, disguised as being nice. I was just a nice person, dang it. So I was a doormat, but I was trying to manipulate at the same time. I was like, look at me. Somebody see me. But I didn't even see myself. I didn't know my value. That's why I kept being a doormat. So I thought I would not get hurt if I was nice. And that's what we're taught, right? A lot of times we're taught, if I just be nice, I'm not going to get hurt, but that's not true. All right, I warned you. You're gone. The parrot is so happy to be back in our house. He's in his house over there. Thank you for asking, saving the Madam Age. Thank you. He's here. He's so happy to be back here. He's in his own little world there. So, Luke, it's so good to see you. Well, I'm glad that you came on and told us Happy Wednesday. I'm always happy to see you, and I hope you'll come back. I'll be back here Friday night at 6. So thank you for popping in, and I hope you have a good day at work. And remember, it's Wednesday. You're a winner, okay? Thank you so much. All right. So if we're nice, then we won't get hurt, right? That's the reality is that we were nice and we still get hurt. That's the reality, is we're nice and we still get hurt, and we haven't healed from that pain or fear, and we just keep strategizing instead of breathing into our birthright of free will and asking why for me and not asking why for them. I loved one of your oldest videos on transformational. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Have you subscribed, Saving the Moon? I don't know, always know who gets to subscribe, but I hope you subscribed. If you all like this content, and if you haven't subscribed, I hope you'll consider subscribing and hitting that notification, because I'll be back on here Friday night too. Slow Static, it's good to see you. You couldn't make it through your job interview. Any tips? Yeah, I'm talking about that kind of now. I'm talking about codependency, Slow Static. I don't know if it's going to help, but as always, I've kind of gotten halfway through here, but I'm going to do the review, what we've talked about. So I hope that this helps. Thank you for being here, and I'm sorry, but you will do better. You will. You'll do better at the next job interview. You can get through it. I know you can. I do. It's just sometimes it's very intimidating, right? It's very intimidating. So nothing changes. I healed from much of the pain and fear that kept me strategizing of breathing into my birthright. Breathe into our birthright of free will. Just breathing is one thing, Slow Static, that's going to help in that job interview. Is there are people like you, and we forget that when we're in a job interview, that they're people just like us, but they seem like they have so much power, right? Do you do speeches for in a group sessions? I could do speeches. I do have group sessions. I have a group coaching session on Facebook. I have a subscription on Facebook. And so I do. You're very welcome, darling. On Facebook, I have a Thursday, every other Thursday, we have a live group coaching, but it's on Zoom. So if they subscribe to the channel, then I'm able to send them a Zoom link. So I do that on group coaching, and I can speak in public. I have done public speaking before too. So it's a lot of good. It's fun. I enjoy it. Ozzy, hello. So we're talking about codependency this morning. A lot of people don't realize the depth of codependency. So that's why this week that's been our topic, is a lot of people think I'm not codependent. I thought I wasn't codependent either, but I sure was. So I was saying nothing changes until something changes. And instead of us trying to change someone else, we need to realize the only person we can change is ourselves. And just because we change doesn't mean someone else will. An example of this is like my dad quit smoking and drinking, so we kids wouldn't. He quit smoking and drinking for 5 years through religion. We talked about addiction last week. So if you feel that you struggle with addiction, or question if you do, then feel free to look at those last week's videos. So my dad thought that he was setting an example, which was what he was taught, is that parents are supposed to set examples. But he too had experienced childhood trauma. He grew up in the alcoholism and addiction, and so he tried to make it better for 5 years for us. But we grew up in the alcohol and addiction too, and the actual alcoholic and addiction was what taught me the lessons of how I've been clean and sober for 29 years now. So. Alchemist Holy Mountain. I don't know what you're talking about. Saving the dumbage. Honestly, your voice explains some complex things in the clearest way possible, and it really helps. Thank you so much, Saving the Madamage. I didn't understand. Yeah, I apologize. I got thrown off for a minute, but I'm okay now. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Saving the Madamage. Okay. So, my dad quit smoking and drinking, so we kids wouldn't, and it didn't work because I had to learn my own lessons. That autonomy, right? I had to learn my own lessons, and so he took it personal. So he went back when he caught me smoking cigarettes. He went back to smoking and drinking. That's part of codependency too, because I'm going to show you because you didn't act the way I wanted you to, and I used to do that too. That's being spiteful. That's a lot of things, but that's not what, setting our own intentions and motivations. His intention and motivation was for me not to use, and I did anyway, and he can't control that, just like big guy can't control if his brother keeps going back to that lady. So, it's just, There's some things you can't control, and that's where the wisdom to know the difference comes in too. You can't control another person, place, or thing. All you can do is control your thoughts and feelings about those places and things. So both of my kids didn't even remember seeing me drink or smoke. I smoked and drank too, and my kids didn't remember it. And because I made an amends to them, my daughter was 2 when I got sober, and my son was almost 5, and they're like, we don't remember that, but they both chose to smoke and drink. I didn't want them to smoke and drink, but they're going to do what they're going to do. They were free will, and I still told them, I love you. I didn't try to shame them, because they did, because people, that was their autonomy. I wanted them to be okay in their autonomy. I had no control. So yeah. All right. I had to learn my lessons, and my kids learn their lessons, and people do what they do because that's what they do, and no amount of time we waste trying to get into their heads will change that. People do what they do because that's what they want to do, and no amount of time of us trying to waste our time getting inside somebody else's head is going to change that. That is, in essence, we don't realize we're trying to manipulate. But that's what the desire is. If we really were to get clear with ourselves, is we're desiring to get in their head so we understand. But if we understand, then what are we going to do with it? Either we're going to subject ourselves to more pain, or we're going to try to manipulate them not to do that again, right? So, understanding our own whys is the only way to have peace and freedom. That seems to elude us, and can break the illusion that we have power over someone else, and that will prove our love. Are we trying to prove our love by gaining power over someone else? Because we gave our power away. So we're desiring our power, but we just maybe don't know where to get it, that it's within ourselves. So our proof of love is inside, not outside, and continues to grow if we let it. It's not a destination. It's a conscious connection to ourselves, and that connects us to the outer world and our desires. It's an inside job, darling. It's an inside job. Happiness, love, and all of that. It's an inside job. And then you'll project differently out there. You won't be going for the familiar, because your familiar is going to change, and you may feel like an imposter first, because nothing changes if it doesn't change. And a lot of us are afraid of change. Saving the mad image. I agree. What people don't realize is that alcoholism is just a choice, but considering the consumption of it without limitations is the issue. It's pointless in a way, because youngsters are grumpy. Yeah, they got all them hormones. Youngsters got a lot of energy to be angry, and I was a youngster who had a lot of energy to be angry too. And as an older person, I just don't have the energy. So I think that that's where a lot of wisdom comes to pick our battles, is that I had a lot of battles when I was younger. Alcoholism, one of them. But I still don't drink. It's 29 years, and I don't regret not drinking for 29 years. I don't regret not smoking any weed for 29 years, but I sure thought I couldn't live without it at one time. But so instead of looking to other people to show us who we are, what we want, or to validate what we want, because if we keep looking for it, that's what we'll find. We need to be willing to look within. So if we keep looking for somebody, but if we're used to a certain behavior, because some people will say, well, I want this, but I'm used to this. Well, you're not in alignment. It's what people call alignment. You're not in alignment if you say, I want this, but I'm used to this, because you're already getting ready to be prepared to be let down. See, when you love yourself, you don't have to prepare to be let down. When we love ourselves, we realize that life has these ebbs and flows in it. It has different colors, textures, and all of these things that make life so beautiful. And if it were just one way, blinders on, one way all the time, that would be pretty boring, and we won't grow, because pain is the greatest motivator. Those tears water the soul, which helps your soul and your heart and everything to grow, so that you feel a part of everything instead of not a part. And when you're not a part of some things, you're glad to not be a part of some things. Because we're all here, everybody's just here. We're all souls. If we can't help somebody, we don't need to hurt them. And we're not going to be able to help everybody. We're not supposed to. But we're supposed to help who we can, when we can, if we can. But not everybody who needs help wants help. Maybe they just want a certain kind of help. Maybe they just want you to co-sign their stories. and they're negative stories and not of value. And maybe that's not where you are, because when I was in my negativity, I found people that would co-sign my negativity. When I was in my victimhood, I found other people in my victimhood. So that's why I'm saying we will gravitate towards the familiar. And when they say we're the sum of the 5 people in our life, I don't have that 5 people, my first top 5 friends. I have 3. Hi, Foxglove Fairy. It's good to see you this morning. But, you know, it's an honor to be a part of my friendships, you know. So everything, what we're looking for, if we're looking to be disappointed, we're going to find it. If we're looking for that expectation, that appointment with disappointment, we're going to find it. So when I look for what I'm looking for, it's not going to come instantly like that. It's learning that practice and development, that process, progress, not perfection. You know, and I know that I can set a goal for here, and I don't have to have everything figured out right here. But staying focused on what I want instead of changing my plans. Because used to in my youth, I was, you know, you're from Toronto. Have you been there? I have been to Canada. I think I was in Toronto. I just went across Michigan into Canada, and we had dinner over there. So I can't even remember. It's been over 35 years ago. So it's been a long time. Welcome here, though. Is it hot there too? It's hot everywhere, right? So everything is divinely connected and wholly directed. I'm so grateful you found me too, SG. Sober optimism is wonderful fuel for personal transformation. Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. I want to ask y'all if you enjoy this content, if you'll subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that like button, please. So thank you all. I'm so honored that you all are here this morning, because I know you have choices, other places you could be, other channels you could be on. And that you're here, that means a lot to me. Okay, so thank you. All right. So because if we keep looking for it, that's what we'll find. So looking within, everything is divinely connected and wholly directed. When I say holy, I mean WHOLLY, because you were born whole. You were born whole. We just forget that when we don't get our autonomy, when we forget who we were, when we forget what our gifts and talents were because we tried. And so we sometimes will feel our whole life trying, but we already are. And it's just trying to get back to where you were. You came across this channel last year randomly. I realized Miss Stacy is better than any other lecture I've ever. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Saving the madamage. I appreciate that. That's a great compliment. That makes my day. Makes my day. Let me get a drink of water. So we will make mistakes. We will. It's okay. We'll make mistakes, and all of it will pass. That's this adventure of life. Our intentions are connected to our thoughts, expressed through our words. Our motivations are connected to our feelings, expressed through what we do, our body language. And codependents have become very good at reading others' words. As a codependent, I would be reading other people's words and their actions. They were under the microscope, right? But typically have neglected their own. So we will typically neglect our own if we're in codependency, and that's why we continue to feel neglected over and over again. Makes sense now, doesn't it? That's why, because we were neglecting ourselves and didn't even know it. 108 there yesterday, Mama. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. All right. So we neglected our own, and that's why we continue to feel neglected over and over. It's not all about us. Only in our minds, and that's why we need to learn our own whys. Because we may think that other people are behaving a certain way because of us, because we're in fear of inferiority of other people sometimes. It's human. It's human. But to overcome our fear, that's human too. So what is about us is just me. It's not all about us. Like, I don't need to save and fix everybody and everything, because a lot of people feel like, well, if I don't do it, nobody else will. Well, that's not true. They just haven't had to. Sometimes we slip into that enabling. So, yeah. So when we learn our own whys, we will then know what is and what is not for us, and won't try to conform or manipulate love. Acceptance, and appreciation. So we were born worthy and spend a long time trying to figure out what will make us feel that way instead of remembering we were made that way. So I encourage you in taking the adventure to yourself to remember that child and what you loved. And maybe you were not encouraged or supported in what you did and have been still afraid to measure up. Maybe your autonomy was broken at 2 years old when you started saying no. you know maybe when you were 14, 12, 13, 14, 15 and going into puberty and started realizing who you are. Maybe it's like, I want to do this, and they're like, no, that's not good enough. If you heard that, then that broke your autonomy. It wasn't purposeful. It was them working from their own fears. See, when we understand that these people had fears and these people had fears, we don't have to take their fears on anymore, is all that I'm saying. It's not blaming them. We can't empower ourselves and blame someone else, but we can't also not acknowledge, who we are. And we sometimes have to look at our map. Okay, I went from here, so this is where I want to grow. So what do I need to do? Can I remember, like on Wednesday, the times I have overcome? Because where you are today might be where you wanted to be 10 years ago, And it's so in being conscious of where you want to be in 10 more years and remembering your wins and your intentions and motivations. And you can always, we're never too old and it's never too late to understand our own intentions and motivations, our own whys. So I encourage you to take the adventure to yourself to remember that child and what you loved. And maybe you weren't encouraged or supported. A lot of people were never supported because their parents didn't learn how, because a lot of people thought there just had to be rules and discipline. So many people got focused on the rules and discipline that sometimes disconnected people from feelings. It doesn't mean that they were doing what they were taught, But, we break cycles and interrupt patterns. That's what I like to do, is break cycles and interrupt patterns, because things are changing. They are evolving. And what used to work doesn't work anymore. That might have worked in the past. Oh, God. There we go. Okay. Sorry, that's not on the topic. All right. So be like a child. There's a difference between childlike and childish. They are opposite, saving the mad image. I think some people who are overly social end up trying to help everyone as a result of a guilty conscience or being worrywart or something, and they face more problems ultimately because of the pressure. Yes, some people were taught to worry. Growing up, I used to hear this a lot. Oh, I'm worried about such and such, and I'm worried about this, and I'm worried about that. Some people were taught to worry, and that's kind of like a depression, right? And so they were. It is. And so when you're taught to do that, you expect that you have to worry or you're not part of your human. I used to have a plaque in my bathroom that says, worry ends where faith begins. And if I really believe somebody's capable of doing something, see, that's codependency too. Is if we enable people, we're not allowing them to realize their capabilities. We're stealing something from them, their autonomy, because we are going to fail. We're going to fail. All of us, most of us are going to fail at something. And it's okay. We're still going to be alive. But when somebody puts so much emphasis on the fear of failure, everything's in this electromagnetic field, this polar field, there's positive and negative. The cars don't run without positivity and negativity. A lot of things, we have that. And when we can embrace that in that consciousness, then we can know where we need to adjust and adapt for ourselves, not someone else. Where do I need to adjust and adapt for myself? Where can I merge in harmony my ego and my soul? Because your ego gives you your drive, and your soul will give you the direction if you're conscious. And that together creates harmony, because you'll be okay if you get your way, and you'll be okay if you don't get your way. See, that's the thing. That's where harmony is, right? So be like a child. There's a difference between being childlike and childish, and they're opposite. So childlike is filled with wonder. You were childlike with your first jab at autonomy, and you may have not been supported. You can support that inner child now. Childish is when we have adult temper tantrums. That's not attractive, is it? So we live in a world of attraction and repulsion in this polar electromagnetic world. And so when we project our pain onto others, like a child who isn't getting what they want or have had a nap, right? When we're tired, sometimes if we're overwhelmed, we're just tired, and we may be looking for a fight all the time if we're people pleasing. And we may not even know it because we're so disconnected from ourselves. So one is attractive and freeing, and the other is not attractive and is manipulative. So those temper tantrums are in order to try to gain control. Being childlike is of wonder, of just saying, well, if I do this, what's going to happen? It's not the fear of failure. It's not the necessity to win. It's just doing it. Just being like, wonder what's going to happen. So I look forward to hearing in our next live on Friday night what your childlike wonders were. You know, what if you can do that today when we get into our breathing, I want you to kind of ponder these wonders, because your brain has so much information. And so you're going to find what you're looking for in that data in your brain. So if you'll just recall the good things. See, for me, to dig the junk off of my soul, because I used to hang around with victims all the time, is, oh, the ain't it awfuls, and the oh this, and the oh that. And then when I started digging that stuff up off of my soul and getting a different perspective, not saying I'm sugarcoating what happened, I'm not giving what happened power over me, is what I'm saying, is when I heal and feel the feelings of, and being able to recognize, oh, I felt, when I felt rejected, I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like this. I felt like that. Because until I can describe it, I can't heal it, because I'd shut my brain down. So I have to be able to open my brain up to think a different thought. I missed your streams for a long time as I was flying to the UK time to time, and I was jet lagged. So I'm so glad I could join the stream today. I'll definitely be joining in the future also. Thank you so much, Saving the Mad Image. I'm so glad you joined today too, and I'll look forward to you next time when you can be in here. I'm hoping to travel to the UK next year. I'm going to travel to the UK next year. So, hello, Mike Piccolo. So our question today is what am I actually trying to prevent when I rush to rescue? Hello, James McMillan from Ireland. It's good to see you. What we've been talking about today is codependency. A lot of people don't understand codependency, so I pick a topic a week, and we continue to talk about that topic for the week to continue to expand upon that topic. We break it down into sections so that it's not too much at one time. We talked about addiction last week, which is a lot of addiction is a component of codependency. So we're just breaking it down. There's addiction. I'm a mindset coach, a life coach, and I specialize in addiction recovery, codependency, and grief. And addiction recovery isn't just drugs and alcohol. It's food, shopping, relationships, codependency, love addiction, all kinds of things. All right, Mike Piccolo. All right. Wednesday, am I helping or am I avoiding? That's what we talked about today. Am I helping or am I avoiding? Helping can sometimes be enabling. And sometimes you're telling somebody when you're enabling them that they're not capable. So that's not giving them that feeling of being good enough just because you were trying to be nice and help them. Because if you keep helping the same person over and over with the same problem over and over, then you're participating and you are enabling. And that's not to chastise you, because I know that I thought I was being nice when I did that too. And I had to be accountable to myself, because then it gets into control. Because then when I would get angry, we get angry when people don't do, after we've tried to help them and they don't do what we suggest or what we're trying to get them to do to make their life better, because we know better, then we're going to get all angry. And maybe we do, maybe we don't. Maybe we're just out of our business and we're trying to distract ourselves from our own things because we have a relation to what they're talking about, right? So, what did you learn? This is just a summary. So if you were late, this is just a summary. So what did you learn? Because what we learn through our experiences becomes part of the way we see the world. It becomes our perception, our expectations, our thoughts, our opinions, and very often our fears. So we learned what brought us acceptance. We learned what made people happy. We learned what made them unhappy. That's how we may have, learned how to anticipate and strategize life. Adelaide, the need to be needed it is a dangerous thing. It is a dangerous thing because we don't realize our worth. You see, your worth doesn't come from being needed. A lot of people feel, I know I did. My self-worth came from being needed, came from being the go-to person. I don't need to be the go-to person. I don't need to be. I'm for some people, but I'm not for everybody, and I know this and I'm okay with that. But I had to learn to be okay with it because it was all about me. When people didn't like me, oh, well, it's all about me. But no, it's okay. So, yeah, I don't need to be needed. I want to be wanted. I think that all of us want that, but we don't know how to achieve it because we may have been programmed to be needed. So depending on how much support we had while we were developing our autonomy, we may have also learned how to adapt ourselves to get what we needed. That doesn't make us bad, it makes us human. So eventually an adaptation can become a strategy. And when the strategy becomes familiar enough, we stop recognizing it as a strategy. We call it, that's just who we are. And that's where I want to go, today. Somebody can say, I just want to help. And perhaps they genuinely do, but I want to get curious about the why underneath the why. Let's get curious about the why underneath the why. Am I helping because I genuinely want to? Or am I helping because something inside of me believes that I have to, that if I don't, no one else will? That's not true. Am I helping because it feels good to contribute? There's always a solution for every problem, y'all. It doesn't have to be me. Or because I don't know who I am when I'm not needed. See, some people don't know who they are when they're not needed. Am I helping because I have something to give? Or because I'm afraid of what might happen if I don't? Am I helping or am I avoiding something? So sometimes the help is actually the strategy, right? The help is actually the strategy. If I help you, you won't leave me. If I fix this, you won't have to feel helpless. I won't have to feel helpless. If you're okay, then I can finally relax. If I make this better, maybe you'll appreciate me. If you need me, I have value. If I'm focused on your problems, I don't have to look at mine. See, these are strategies. If I keep you from experiencing the consequences, I don't have to experience my guilt. Some of us have unearned guilt, and I've talked about that in prior videos too. So if you haven't got to see that, then, if I can figure out what you're thinking, maybe I can prevent something painful from happening again, right? That's manipulation. And if this is where codependency can become a relationship-based survival strategy, at some point we may have learned I'm safer when everybody around me is okay. So we became the rescuer, the fixer, the peacekeeper, the caretaker, the mediator, the person who explains everyone else's behavior, the person who knows exactly what everybody else needs. And not necessarily because we're weak, but because being needed became connected to safety, belonging, love, or worth. So what I want us to look at is instead of saying, why did they do that? Why didn't they call? Why did they say that? Why aren't they acting this way? Why don't they understand me? Why don't they appreciate me? Why aren't they changing? And because we don't actually know the answer, our minds will create one. So just know that. We're not going to know the answer. Because even when people tell us the answer, sometimes we still get angry. Sometimes we still don't believe them. That's because that inner compass in us is stuck on one thing. The don't and the this and that old tapes. So we take the information we have, our experiences, our memories, our perceptions, our fears, and we build a story that makes the situation make sense. Because we still have that creative childlike self, but we're not using the creativity in the way that's going to be beneficial for us. We're using the creativity just solely to try to protect us. But how many of us try to protect ourselves and end up feeling defeated over and over again? So if it's not working, it's not working, and nothing will change if it doesn't change. So it's just making these little changes. You can't make a big change all at once. A lot of people will say, I'm starting to set boundaries. And so they start creating all these rules and talking crazy and offending people. Actually, loving boundaries aren't like that. Loving boundaries are, being able to love myself and love you too, but I don't have to do what you want me to. Or you don't have to do what I want you to. And I don't, we have this respect. That's a real respect. Some people were demanded respect. We talked about that a few weeks ago. Respect being demanded. Respect isn't demanded. Respect is that we learn to negotiate our wants, needs, and desires, not compromising, not where one person always gets what they want, where it's a one-sided relationship. And that's a lot in codependency, is those one-sided relationships. So we'll react as though that's truth if this is our fears. Sometimes we let our fears guide our truth. And that's where we can get caught up in the evidentiary rabbit hole. We collect the evidence, the second guessing. We feel justified. We become resentful. We replay what happened, ruminate, and then we try to I'm getting tired. Then we try to figure them out even more. But what if the question isn't, why are they doing this? What if the question is this, why am I doing this? So I want us to leave us with this today. So our nervous system can bring us back into this conversation. When we're operating from survival, we don't have a lot of time to sit around and thoughtfully investigate our motivations. We react, something happens, we feel fear, and then we fix it. We rush, we explain, we call, we give, we rescue, we make it better, we try to control the outcome. Because somewhere inside our body has learned, if I can prevent this painful thing from happening again, I'll finally feel safe. So I want to talk about illusions, and then we're going to lead into the breath, okay? This is where the illusion begins to break. Sometimes we think, if I change, they'll change. If I change, they'll change. But changing ourselves isn't a manipulation technique. We don't change so someone else will respond differently. We change because we're responsible for ourselves. My dad quit smoking and drinking so his children wouldn't do it. It didn't work. Not because his change wasn't meaningful, but because we each have our own lessons to learn in this life. That's our own autonomy. We're going to fail and we're going to win. That's life on life's terms. People do what they do because that's what they do. It has nothing to do with me. No amount of time spent trying to get inside somebody else's mind will change that. Understanding my own why can, because when I understand my intention and motivation, I have a choice. I don't have to react automatically. I can pause, I can breathe, I can notice what's happening in my body. What's happening? Am I short of breath? Is my heart beating fast? Is my stomach feeling like it's turning? Get in my body, because our bodies are telling us things about certain situations. And sometimes we try to, override it. We see those red flags and we keep going. When our body's trying to tell us, I don't know about this, we're like, no, because that's that second guessing, right? So intention versus motivation. When you look at your intentions and motivations, our intentions are connected to our thoughts expressed through our words. Our motivations are connected to our feelings expressed through what we do in our body language. So if I say if I want to feel secure, this is what I used to tell my therapist. She'd say, what do you want, Stacy? And I'd be like, I want security. And she'd say, no, you don't, because the choices I was making were indicating that I wanted security, because I was doing the same thing, but saying I wanted security. This is when we're expecting hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. This is what I mean by matching. If we want to have relationships that match, we need to match. Okay? So I just want to leave y'all with that. And as we go into our breathing, knowing that you were born worthy, that love, you were born love. You have that. So let's just breathe into that. I want you to breathe in your love, your worth, that childlikeness as we hold it for 4 counts. If you can't hold it 4 counts, that's okay. Just do your best, what's comfortable for you. But see, the breath connects us to our self, cells, and soul, because it regenerates your cells. It also gets you in your divine mind, your right mind, because the brain loves oxygen. Y'all know if our brain don't have oxygen, we are just not doing well at all. So we have to have oxygen in our brain. We need oxygen in our cells and in our blood. We need this oxygen. So let's breathe in that, and also recalling your childlike gifts. You had these gifts as a child. Look at me, look at this, right in your back, just doing these things that you did as a child that brought you joy. Dancing, if you want to ride a bike, ride a bike. If you want to walk, walk. Be present, though, with yourself. But while you're remembering that, I walk all the time, and I remember when I was a kid, I didn't get to walk like I walk now, and I have freedom. What does it give you? When I roller skated as a kid, remembering I did that, I felt free when I roller skated. So I want y'all to breathe that in. You are still that person. You still carry the pain. If you know, just because you got an adult body doesn't mean that the pain went away. But you're a whole person. And that pain doesn't define you. You can heal the pain. So let's just breathe in the wonder, that childlike wonder. Hold it for 4 counts. You're going to fill up your tummy. Your shoulders will rise. Your heart will open. You're going to have divine breath going through. And then we're going to hold it 4 counts if you can, but just do your best. And then we release gently and slowly out of the mouth. We're only doing 5 breaths, y'all. Just 5 breaths. I'm not going to keep you on here all day. We're almost done. Okay? All right, here we grow. Here we grow. Oop. So let's take a deep breath in. Hold it. And release. Breathe in. Hold it. And release. Breathe. Hold it. And release. Just 2 more. Do you feel your heartbeat? Breathe in. Hold it. And release. Last one. Breathe in. Hold it. And release. All right. Well, if you're still here, if you haven't hit the like button, I hope that you will. And I look forward to seeing you all on Friday night at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, today. I really appreciate you. And I hope you're going to have a wonderful Wednesday and enjoy yourself. And remember those times that you've won. You are a winner. So putting that on your focus today, okay? Because we need a day of the week where we can feel so overwhelmed with the week, but you're a winner. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you very much. All right. See you Friday night at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time.